Hey guys, Will here. Welcome back to Miling from the Ensign's Chair. This is episode 3 of our 1/350 scale original series Enterprise build. Almost ready to seal the saucer up. We've got a couple little things to do. So what I'll do is first we'll get into this and I'll catch up to what I did and where I'm at with it. And then I also want to talk about some paints today. I did some paint tests as far as deciding what paints I want to, at least the base coat, the main hull paint that I want to go with. And then there's a couple other little colors that I got to work out yet, but we'll talk about those and we'll look at a couple other little things, and we'll try to keep this episode short so you're not sitting here too long staring at me. But I appreciate everybody that's watching, everybody that's subscribing. Thank you. Give me a minute, put you on the desk, we'll get to work. Alright guys, so got this just about ready to seal up, and what I've done here is, what I want to do is I want to go back real quick and just do a review real quick. So I want to make sure, looking at the last video, not too sure I was real clear on this. I had talked about how I had to reverse the polarity on these LED light strips. Well, when I did that, when I went to hook up all these individual LEDs, none of the individual LEDs worked. So what I ended up having to do was go back and the connection, and I'll have to disconnect this to be able to get it in camera, but the connection that plugs into your outlet, turns out that is where I had to reverse the polarity. So on this I hooked the red wire to the black going into the board, and the black wire from the power source to the red going into the board. So that's where I had to swap it. Well, when I did that, the individual LEDs started working, but my LED strips didn't work. So what I ended up having to do was go back and flip the connections again on my LED strips to where the red wire is connected to the positive. So you need to, I had to go back and do all that. So make sure when you do this, if you're using this light kit, try to hook it up the way it's supposed to be first. I don't know if all these kits are like this. If it doesn't work that way, then just flip your connection, the connection that goes to your first board from your power outlet, and it should work at that point. And that's what ended up being the problem with mine. So just wanted to clarify that because I wasn't sure if I was real clear that I did go back and rewire all these LED strips the way that they originally were supposed to be. So just want to make sure everybody knew that. But so all the lights are working now. I got you can see, I'm turning this off, maybe a little easier to see. You see all the lighting working. Another thing I found out with the windows, the way I'm doing them is, originally, let's see, I think I got one laying here. These windows that come with the kit are all one piece. And I think that part of the reason they do that is because that makes it to where the light catches on this plastic and it helps draw that light to the windows. So what I found was on the bottom section, I wasn't liking the way the lighting was turning out. It wasn't quite lighting up the windows as nice as I wanted them to. So what I ended up doing was coming back in with the Micro Crystal Clear, and I backfilled all the back sides of where those windows went. I backfilled that to help catch the light more, and that seemed to help improve it. But what I'm doing now is the remainder of the windows, like around the saucer edge, I use the actual kit windows. And I haven't really checked to see if they're fitting flush or not. They're pretty close to flush, but there's a little bit of space. What I may do is just take some Micro Crystal Clear to bring those windows flush with the outer edge of the saucer, and then sand them like I did with the rest. But I'll have this plastic piece to kind of help draw that light in, so I don't have that same issue I had with these. So when I do another one of these, what I'll probably do is use the kit windows. And if they're not fitting flush, I'll use the Micro Crystal Clear, but that way it helps draw that light in more by using that one piece plastic. So just want to put that out there. That's a change I'm going to make to doing these outside windows. So everything's wired up, and I've got all my window pieces in. Take a look at the bottom side, and that's all lit up. I'm glad they make this light dimmer, because that way it's not overpowering the rest of everything. It should light up that bottom dome nicely. But you can see all the lights coming through everything, so we're good there. And I did do the bridge, and I did post some pictures of that. And it turned out all right. It's kind of hard to deal with. But one thing I did too was my impulse deck. So this is actually the first photo etch part that I used out of the engine grills paragraphic set. And they actually come with 3. And I think I'd mentioned this one is like just a square, there's a trapezoid, and then one was just the open grills. And I decided just to go with the open grills. Just to me, that's the one that looked better. But it calls for you to replace the plastic part that goes in here with that grill. So what I ended up doing though, because I wanted this to be red when it lit up, and you can see when I unplug it, I use both hands for this. When I unplug it, it looks black just like it should. So I like the way it does that using those grills. So what I did was I took the photo etch part and I painted it, primed it black, and I took the plastic piece that was supposed to go in here, and that's what I painted red with some Tamiya clear red, and I attached the photo etch part to that plastic piece, to the flat side of it, because it's got one side where there's dimples that are supposed to fill in these where these holes are for the impulse. But so anyway, I flipped that over, attached the photo etch part to the flat side of that plastic piece, and glued it in. And it turned out pretty well. I like the way it looks. So I got that lit up. That's ready to go. So like I said, I only got a couple things left to do, and then I'll be ready to seal this up. I do have to put in some other pieces, but I did want to mention though that I think I showed that these color parts come with the Polar Lights lighting kit, and I don't know if I'll use any of the orange or blue, but I am going to use the red and green for my nav lights. But I just want to point out this kit part, the clear part, comes with your actual kit. This replaces this part, so this goes in my pile of extra parts, and I'm going to have left over after this, which is okay because when I build more of these, I'll have plenty of extra parts. So I got to put those on yet, and then that's the last thing I really need to do before I'm ready to seal up the saucer. I did have some little photo etch parts that I used in the bridge, and that's done. And then I did use the Lake Monster Models decal set for the bridge, and it turned out really well. This kit does include a decal for the, I don't think it came with this one. No, it includes one for the nav station, and that one is a pain in the butt to get in place. But other than that, they worked out really well. Used a little micro saw and they set right down in place. And so I think it turned out pretty well, especially for my first build, and I'm not too good at the little miniature parts. But so that's where I'm at with that. A little more to do and we're done with that. So the other thing I want to talk about was the paints. And I've been posting some photos of some paint tests I've been doing. Let's set this aside here. So paints that I've been testing out, and these are ones that I've seen people talk about the most that they use. I got a, these are all Tamiya, by the way. This is an AS32 medium C gray. Got an AS18 light gray, and an AS29 gray green, which is IJN. And then the last one I tried was this XF12, which I think I've heard talked about the most. But this one here I didn't see in a rattle can, so I put it in my spray gun or my airbrush and brushed it on. So what it did was I kind of took a couple different parts. I've been using my older AMT, I think it was, model of the Enterprise. It's kind of my test bed for things. But get these in order. And I don't know how well these are going to show up on camera, but so I tested these out, and the first one I tested out was the medium C AS32. And like I said, I don't know how well these are going to show up on camera, but this one was just, it's kind of a plain gray. There's not really any green hue to it. And what I'm looking for, and what I know to be correct, is that the model has a slight green tinge to it. This one had no green to it at all. But what I did find is that this works out pretty well for the, oh, you got all these accent paints that they don't really tell you what color they are. You just kind of got to figure out what you're going to use, because they've got one called Turbo Lift Green, and the only reason it's called Turbo Lift Green is because it's used for the turbo lift. So don't go out there looking at your paint store for a Turbo Lift Green. You're not going to find it. You're also not going to find the intercool accent. But the exterior accents, this was it number 1 or was it number 4? Number 1 is kind of a gray color, is what it looks like. And looking at the studio model, it's a slightly, it's not a really heavy dark gray that I could tell. Maybe it is, but it's just the way I look at it. So what I decided to do was I'm going to use this this medium sea gray for my exterior accents, because I think, and I used it on the impulse deck, but you're probably not going to be able to really tell it that much in the camera. But so I kind of ruled this out as a whole color, like I said, because it's really just a plain gray. There's no green tint to it at all. So, but I will use that for my accents. The other one was an AS18 light gray IJA. This one has just the slightest, maybe the slightest tint of a green hue to it, and it's very slight though. So, you know, to me it's not quite what I'm looking for. It's a nice color, don't get me wrong. And I can see why some people would use it. It does have like, it does have just the slightest green tinge to it. But, and you know, a lot of these depend on where you're going to display these too. You got to look at your lighting in the room that you plan to put these in, because, this was in the pictures I posted on Facebook, the lighting is going to affect the way the colors look on this. So, you know, in some places this may appear to have a little bit more of a darker green, but to me it's more of a green with just a slight tinge of gray. So I decided I'm not going to use that one. I want something with just a little more of a green hue to it. Now this AS29 green gray IJN, and it's got a little bit more of a greenish hue to it than the light gray. And to me, as far as the rattle cans go, I like this color. If I was using the rattle cans, this is probably the color I would go with. And that's not to say that it's the correct color. It's not to say that it's the best color. It's the color that I would go with. So that's something to look at too, though. You know, test these out yourself. You know, the only thing I can say is go to the model store or hobby shop, you know, depending on what kind of paints you use. Get some paints and try them out, and don't put them together when you do this. Put them in separate areas, paint them up, look at them, because if you take this one and you put it next to, say, this color, it's going to look really green, and you're going to be like, oh, that's not correct. But stand alone by itself, unless you're displaying this with a gray background, that's going to offset it. If you look at this by itself, to me that's almost a perfect color. But you know, when you do set it up next to something like this gray here, and again, I don't know how these are going to show up on camera, it's obviously a bit greener than the straight gray. So, you know, when you paint these, look at them individually. Don't hold them up next to something else, another green, until after you've looked at them and kind of made your decision. I kind of made my decision on what color I was going to go with before I kind of put all these together. But so as far as rattle cans, I would go with the AS29, because to me it's just got that slight, you know, enough of a green tinge to make it look closer to what I see as far as the models. And not everybody sees colors the same way, so just keep that in mind too. But I put this XF12, which is a JN gray, in my airbrush, and I airbrushed this saucer section here, and this is actually the color I'm going to go with, because I think, to me, this is the closest representation of what it should look like. Now, like I said, that's not to say that any colors anybody else uses is wrong. It's just this is what, to me, looks right. You need to do your, you know, make your own judgment, do your own paint test, look at it, and see which one looks best to you. Now I know people have talked about they might lighten this with white a little bit, and they may mix it with different colors to make it look a little different. But to me, straight out of the bottle, this actually looks pretty good. So this is the color I'm going to end up going with, just because it's kind of, like I said, it's representative of what I expect it to look like or what I expected the color to be. So that's my decision on that. I'm going to go with that. And also, to me, when I hold this next to the molded plastic parts, it's pretty damn close, if not exact. I mean, it's pretty dead on as far as what these are molded in. And when I opened the box, I looked at these. To me, that molded plastic is pretty damn close to what the color should be on this ship. And again, that's my opinion, so don't everybody freak out. But so that's what I'm looking at on that. I'm going to go with the XF12 in my airbrush, and also, not only that, but I like the way that I can control this better in my airbrush than with the rattle can. And then these have a little bit of a sheen to them, which really doesn't matter if you put like a matte finish to it. These have almost like a satin finish right now, it looks like, and this is pretty much flat. So that's what I'm going with on that. Like I said, not to knock anybody else, it's, you know, there is no right or wrong with this, unless you know, one of the guys that made this model or painted it, or the Smithsonian or somebody comes out and releases a model paint saying, hey, this is the color that it has to be or it should be. You're kind of making your own decision as far as what paint you want to go with. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, do your own tests, make your own decision, and you know, just be happy with what you do, or the finished product. So what I'm going to be working on is, like I said, I've got a couple parts to finish putting in the saucer section, and I'll get that sealed up, and hopefully when we come back for the next episode, I'll be ready to start painting the 1350 saucer the same color as this one, and we'll get that done, and then we'll be ready to start working on the secondary hull, which I've got the parts out now. I'm kind of working on clearing some of the flashing out in these windows. But that's it for this episode. Just want to make a quick short one, update everybody on what I'm working on and where I'm at with this model. I appreciate everybody that's been subscribing. We've had quite a few new subscribers, and if you subscribe, thank you very much. Appreciate it. If you find any of this information useful, you don't have to subscribe if you don't want to, but at least hit the like button. Let me know that you enjoy or that you found it useful. I appreciate that very much. So until next time, guys, keep modeling.